Welcome once again. I'm Matt Schwegler with the Infrared Training Center. Thank you for joining us for today's live tutorial on the basics and overview of the FLIR Thermal Studio Route Creator plugin. Something we wanted to do here for a while. Excited about this topic. Got Jason Gagnon joining me. We'll start here in a moment. First, just a few housekeeping items before we get into it. I want to remind everyone we are recording today's session. So if you want to watch this at another date, it'll be available for playback very soon here. We'll probably post it to our YouTube page at youtube.com/infrared training. Of course, we're very active on social media with Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So if you want to give us a like, we'd love to have you join us here for the latest industry news, special training offers, valuable tips, and a whole lot more. And of course, for our schedule, our upcoming training schedule, we've got live classes, both in person, online, and on site. You can head to infraredtraining.com for the list of classes here in the US and Canada. That's all the upcoming dates that we have available. And for our fellow thermographers that might be joining us here from Europe, the Middle East, or Africa, irtraining.eu is where you can go for the latest list of courses and classes in those regions. All right, a topic that we've been asked about for a while now. We want to get right to it. We've got Jason joining us here from our Nashua studio, ready to talk about the FLIR Thermal Studio Route Creator plugin, a way to manage and create routes using the new FLIR Thermal Studio software. Good morning, Jason. How you been?
Morning, Matt. Thanks very much. Glad everyone is able to join us today. As Matt said, the primary focus of today's presentation is going to be on the Route Creator software. Now, this is an add-in for Thermal Studio Pro. And the add-in allows you to structure and manage your inspections by creating asset lists of all of the items at your facility that you would typically inspect. These asset lists can be sent or exported to a camera as routes. Now, the idea behind the route is that it will guide you through the process of collecting the images in the camera. Now, each of these assets and each of these inspection points can have some descriptive information added to them. So it's not just an item there to inspect. You can add some text. So in this example here, just a simple example, but you have a couple of locations, a couple of assets. If you look at this panel over here on the right, you can see the name of this particular inspection point, and then you can also see some descriptive text along with it. That information is what the thermographer will see when they're capturing the image. So you can add some extra information to help them through the process as they collect their images. And there are basically three types of items that you can add to these asset lists as you build them. The first is the location. So basically where the asset is located. Now, in this example here, we have kind of a top level location, which is the company name. Now, underneath that, we have two sub-locations for this power generation plant and substation. So essentially, it's like locations within a location. So you can tier them in this way. The next level down will be the asset, the item being inspected. Now, in this example, each sort of sublocation has an asset associated with it. And of course, you can have several different assets per location. The inspection point is the area or item to inspect on that particular asset. These are important because these are what the camera is going to prompt you for. So as it guides you through that route, it's going to show the thermographer each of these inspection points And then you're going to have to set a status and capture an image and add some notes or whatever information you want to add to that as you proceed through the inspection. And we'll see this in the software in just a minute. We'll build one of these. I just want to give you kind of an overview here in the presentation. Now, in the camera, so the basic process is you would build that asset list in the software, export it to the camera. On the camera side, once this is enabled, it will guide you through the process. And this is an example of a route in a camera. This item at the top is the inspection point. This here is the status, which can be customized. In this example, it's just okay, critical. So you can pick the status for that item that you're inspecting. This is the captured image. You can add comments. You can see the complete inspection list, all the items that you're inspecting on this particular route. This box here is the text. So that's that descriptive information that you can add to these inspection points. So that's really why it's helpful, because for each of these items, you can see that text in the camera. Now, once all this information is collected in the camera, the next step is to come back to the PC and import all that information and all those images into the software. You can create what's called an inspection file. So this has all your assets. So it's essentially an asset list with information associated with it, the images, the status, any text that you added in the camera. All that information is going to come over when you do the import and create that inspection file. From within the inspection file, you can analyze your images. You can make changes. So you can change the status, you can change the text. And finally, you can create a report. So once you edit your inspection file, analyze your images, do whatever you need to, then you can save that. You can export it to a Thermal Studio report, with all those all the images, all that information right into the report file. This is the routing tab. So once you enable this, once you enter that license number, it's going to add this tab at the end for routing. And again, Pro is needed in order to use this. And this is broken down into two main functions. The first is the route creator. So this is where you would go to create a new asset list or edit an existing or send it to a camera. So if you want to export an asset list to the camera, you have to open that file, that asset list file, then export it to the camera, to the SD card on your camera. So the route creator is all about the asset lists. The routing wizard is where you create that inspection file. So let's say you build your asset list, you export to the camera, you go and collect all your images, and you come back to the office. So what do you do next? Well, you go to the routing wizard. You import from the camera and then build that inspection file from the data that you just collected. So, and again, we'll see that in a minute, but just to break this down a little bit, the difference, the main difference between this tab and what it can do is the asset lists in Route Creator and the inspection file from the wizard. Now, what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to start by creating a new asset list. I'm going to base it on this here, since we've already been talking about this. This is just a simple example, but it will give you a good idea how to go about creating these these asset lists, how to add the locations and whatnot. So this has a couple locations, a couple of assets, and a couple of inspection points. So I'll refer back to this a few times as we go through the process. I'll explain how to customize the comments. It's pretty easy. Once you have the items added on the left, it's just the panel on the right where you can edit that text. So it's pretty easy to customize that. You can customize a route property. So I mentioned the status earlier. We were talking about the camera where it said OK, critical. So you can customize that list. You can add to it and change the color, things like that. You can also configure how the camera behaves during the route. So what I mean by that is that you can set it to automatically advance. So once you have that image saved, it'll just go right to the next item. Or you can just manually go through it yourself. So things like that, you can customize a little bit. You can edit user data. So this is kind of like report properties. If you've used the software before, even the older report software, we've always had these document properties or user properties. So it's information like company name, thermographer, things like that. And that feeds into that inspection file. So once we have the asset list built, we'll save it, we'll export to the camera. I'll show you the process in a T540, just how to collect some of those images. And then we'll come back and create a new inspection file by importing some of that data from the camera, the images, the text, and everything. We'll analyze some images, and then finally, we will send that inspection file information into a new Thermal Studio report. So we'll take you through the whole process from creating the asset list down to creating a report. Thermal Studio. If you're not familiar with this, or if you're fairly new to the software, the tabs are just, it breaks it down into different functions of the software, like the library reporting and so on. This routing tab you would only see if you had the routing add-in installed. So this is where you start, like I mentioned in the PowerPoint, whether you want to create a new asset list or edit an asset list or create an inspection file. Since we don't have an asset list yet, we have to start there. So I'm going to go down here, create a new route. So this is where we begin. Now, how you structure these asset lists is really dependent on your facility, the items that you would inspect, the order in which you would inspect them. So that's the kind of thing you have to think about when you start building these asset lists. What I want to look at, what order, do I want to inspect them? Because it's going to guide you through the process in the order that you build them in the asset list. So if you don't have a formal thermography program in place, it might take some planning to figure out how you want to do this. But once it's done, it's done. Like once you have this asset list built, you can send it to any camera that is compatible. So you could send it to another thermographer. They could export it to their camera and use it. And that way you'd create some consistency with your inspection. So everybody's, looking at the same items in the same order. So it really does help you create some structure with the whole process. But the first step here, we have to create at least one location. And again, going back to our example here. So this particular example had a top level location. So with the company name. So we'll start there. We'll just call it company 1. Now, for any of these items, you'll have this panel over on the right where you can pull this down. That's where you get that editable information and those comments and things like that. So for description, you know, you could put the street address, you know, things like that. Now, the next tier down, we had two locations within that main location. So once you have this selected, you have these buttons that come up where you can duplicate the item. You can add another location. Now this, if you do it here, it's going to add it underneath the selected location. You can add an asset and you can delete the item. So if I do add location, let's see how it's kind of tiered down. It's kind of like an outline, if you think of it that way, where it starts very general and it kind of flows down to more specific information. So at the next level, I want to add two locations. So I have the main power plant. So now here, since I'm doing another location at the same level, I can duplicate this using this button. Just makes a copy, an exact copy of it. Or I can go back up to here and I can add a location. So whichever method you want. For this one, we'll add substation. So those are those two locations. Now, underneath those, I had an asset associated with each one of these. So let's add that. So right up here, go back to the toolbar. Since we're adding an asset now, I don't want to add a location. I want to add an asset. So that's what this button is for. And under substation, I want to add an asset and we'll call it transformer. And as you build these, you can see over here, you have the three different levels. So the locations company 1, sublocation, substation. Next level down is the asset, the transformer, because I have that selected. If I go up here, you can see how that changes a little bit. So still the same top level location. Then you have the power plant, and then you have the force draft fan. And you can pull down any of these and add some extra information for them. Now, for this asset, we had two inspection points. So these are the items that are going to show in the camera. It's going to prompt you for the inspection points when you get to that asset. So now I have to select the asset, which I have highlighted here. And then I have to add an inspection point. So when you have that selected, because it's a location, the option is to add an asset. When you have the asset selected, the option changes to add an inspection point at that asset. So for this, we had two inspection points. Outboard, and I'm going to duplicate this and outboard and inboard bearing. So now for this, I'm going to come over to the comments. And these check marks, you can select this to indicate that it might be difficult to access, or that special qualifications might be needed to inspect this item if it's like a high voltage item or something like that. Again, it's just information that helps the thermographer when they're acquiring this information. Put it, say, an asset number, something like that. And so when we're processing through this in the camera, I'll show you where you can see that text. So outboard, inboard, just add something over here. All right, now for the transformer, we had 3 inspection points. We have the bushings. The LTC and the fans. So that's basically how this was created. So they're really not difficult. It's not that difficult to create these asset lists. It's more a matter of figuring out how you want to build them. Like I said earlier, the structure of the actual file, the structure of your inspections, and how you want to go about this. But actually creating the asset lists is really not too difficult. And you can rearrange things too. So each of these has an up and down arrow. So if you want to put this first, you can easily move that up to the top. You can even say you want to put this location up here. You can move the whole location with the asset and the inspection points. So you can rearrange things. But again, this is the order that it will proceed. It will proceed through the route in this order once you get it into the camera. Whoa. The route properties. So again, I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the camera that you can have the status configured. So this matches the screenshot that I showed from the camera for the status list. So it just had okay, it had note critical, could not inspect. So if you want to customize this, if there's a different list that you would typically use to identify something as okay or critical or whatever, you can change that here to say maybe no problem found. Monitor. Critical. So you can change the text, you can change the order, you can delete a status point, status item, and you can also change the color over here. And you can add to the list. So real easy to change that. where it says configuration list down here. This is where you can set a default status. And these check marks allow you to configure how the camera behaves as you're going through this route. So you can have it automatically go to the next inspection point. Or you can have it require an image. By default, it doesn't require an image. But if you want to have an image associated with every inspection point every time, then you can select this check mark before you send this to the camera. And then it will force the thermographer to capture an image. You can have it delete empty assets. So once you close it, if there's no information with a particular asset, it will just delete it. So you can experiment with these different check marks, see what works best for you. You just have to make sure that you set this in the inspection file or in the asset list before exporting to the camera. So again, those settings are on the Route Properties button on the tab. Now the user data. This is what I mentioned earlier. These are kind of like report properties or document properties. Just, you know, if you're creating reports without Route Creator, just creating reports normally. Most of the reporting software for a while has had something like this. This is just general information about, you know, the company, address, phone number, whatever. So it's more general information about the inspection, not so much image specific. So there's a lot here, a lot of default items here that we could just delete. But you can pretty easily customize this. You can create your own list. You can obviously pretty easily delete the items that you don't need. So this information is going to show up when we come back from the inspection, when we import those images into the inspection file. But it's all associated with this particular asset list. Right? So I'm going to save this. So I'm going to save the asset list. Save it before I export it. So we'll call it. So we have to save it so we can go back to it and edit it or share it if we want to. And then once it's saved, then I can export the route to the camera. So now I have my SD card plugged in from my T540. So I can export this to the card, which is right here, and save it. And that's it. Now we're ready to go. Okay. So we've created the asset list, saved the asset list, and exported to the camera. So now let's see how this works in the camera. Let me connect. There we go. So I'm going to take the card, I'm going to plug it right into the camera. Now, in order to use the route creator in the camera, in order to have it prompt you for the information, you have to enable it in the camera. You also have to have the Route Creator module installed in the camera. There are most of the modern T series and E series do support this, but you definitely want to check with tech support about that to see if your particular camera model supports the feature. Some of the older models, it's optional. You can install it for them, but for the specific guidance on that definitely would check with support. But if you have it installed on the camera, then you can go to settings. You can go down to save options. And then you can enable inspection route. Go back to the live image. All right, so now this says transformer and it says fans. So why is that? Well, transformer and fans, that's the first item on my list here. So that's the first item that the camera shows. So now what we do, now this is all touchscreen driven. So I'm going to tap on the top item there where it says fans. Go to status. Say monitor. Now, see that little notepad over here? If I tap on that, not a lot of information. I didn't add anything specific to the actual asset. All it shows is the street address for the location. But when we go to the others, a couple of the other ones have some more information with them. So it shows that information there. Now you can also add a comment and you can see the complete inspection list. So this is essentially the complete asset list. So I can go to company, I can go to substation, I can see the transformer, and I can see the inspection points on that. So I want to add an image, capture an image. I don't really have anything really too interesting to look at here. So I'm just going to hit save. Okay, so now I have an image captured. Sorry about that. So now I have an image captured for that, that inspection point. So now to get to the next point, there's an arrow there. So we just tap the arrow. Now we go to the bushings. Pull that down, set the status. Capture an image. The LTC. There. I plugged this in here just to have something a little more interesting to look at. Focus on that. So there you go. So this one here had a little more information. That's where I actually added the asset number for this inspection point and some comments. Let's see. But you get the idea. It is it's a step-by-step process, but it's essentially repeating the same steps for each item that you're inspecting. Okay, so now we're at the end of the route. So when you get to this point, you want to lock the route, so you won't be able to edit it in the camera. It essentially closes out the route. So it says, I'm done. I don't want to go back and make any changes. You can lock the route. And now we can come back to the PC. So again, just going back to the whole workflow of this. So you create the asset list, export to the camera, collect all your information. So we're at that point where we have all the images collected. So now I want to come back to the PC and I want to import that information into an inspection file. So we'll go back to the PC, plug in that card. Now on the routing tab, just go to home. Now this time I want to create a new inspection. So I want to pull some of, or import those images and that information from the SD card, and I want to create a new file. So we'll give it a report number. All right, we'll give it a report number. Report date. I want to import from the camera. Oh, should have done that first. Okay, so import from the camera first. There we go. Then we have to select the route from the card. There we go. Okay, so import from the camera, then give it a file name. Now you have two options here, initial inspection and periodic inspection. Since this is the first time we've acquired images, I want to use the initial inspection option. Periodic option allows you to compare it to the last report that you did. So it will actually show both images side by side in the inspection file. But in this case, since this is the first one, I want to select the initial inspection option. Now that user data that I edited earlier, that shows up down here. Okay. So we can put in address, fill that in however you like. And even from here, you can add to this. You can import data. So there's always some options to edit these and add information. Now the next step is going to show you all of those inspection points. Now the difference is that you can see these colored by that status that I selected in the camera. And now, instead of just being inspection points in the asset list, they have information associated with them. You can see the name, you can see the status, same list that you have in the camera. So it's very easy to change that at this stage. There's some extra text information that you can edit and set a priority level. and you can add some comments. Now you can also double click on the image and edit the image. This is the same exact editor that you see in the library, or if you edit from within a report. So you can analyze the images at this stage. You can change your parameters. You can add spot meters, reposition spots, change your scale. So pretty much everything you can do from the library can be done within these inspection files before the final report is made. When we close that, it's going to return to the inspection file. Go to the next image. Add some text here. Double click on that. We'll add a rectangle. Right. Now, once you have all this information set, once you're happy with the images, happy with the text that you've added, we can export all that information into a Thermal Studio report. But I want to save this as an inspection file so I can compare it to the next route. The next time you go out and collect images, you can open this up and you can compare it to the new report and see if anything has changed between the last time and the current inspection. So I'll just we'll just put this on the desktop. Save that. Now I can generate a report. And there is a default template that comes with software. That's that inspection default template that is shown right up here. This template can be edited too. If you pull that down and right click on the template, you'll be able to make some changes to it if you want to customize it a little bit. It's taking so long. Let me try this again. Let's try that again. Another good reason to save those inspection files. So now I can go back and open that back up. See if we can make that report now. There we go. Should not take very long, particularly for something this size. So now it takes all those images, plugs them into this template. And again, this is the default template. So you have some front pages with some extra info. And then where it says loading right now, that's where it's plugging in the thermal image and the matching photo. And so this is just like a a normal Thermal Studio report. There's really nothing that unique about this. It's just pre-designed. The template's kind of designed ahead of time, so that that's the reason for the layout that was used and whatnot. But you can always, just like any report, you can always double click on the thermal, make some changes to it, save that, close that window, and it'll take you back to the report page. If you're interested in editing this, if we go back to routing, this inspection default template that comes down, you can right click on this and go to edit. And so that will open the actual template. And so that's where you can make any permanent changes, like the logo and the document title, things like that. Most people want to customize that kind of thing to be more unique to their company. And so you can do that pretty easily here. That's in the header. You have some cover page information you might want to take a look at. So edit what you like, then you can save the changes, and then it will just, as soon as you save that, that will be implemented in your next report. So if you save with the same file name, it makes it really easy, because then it just updates that template file. All right, that's it. That's the process. So we took it from the beginning to the end, basically. Create the asset list, customize the comments, set the order that you want those assets and those inspection points to be in. We save that, export to the camera, collect some information in the camera, and then import it back into the software. The inspection file, that's what you see here, that contains the images that were collected, the status, the information that was added, and of course you can customize all that here in the software pretty easily. And then you can send that information to a new report. All right, Matt, I think that'll do it for today.
All right, Jason. Excellent. Excellent. We had a lot of questions coming in. Let me
Okay.
Hold on one second.
Yep.
Let me just filter through these, Jason. We had several that came in here, and I want to make sure we get to those. Good presentation. A lot of information. Myself am learning a lot more about Route Creator. So admittedly, for some of you asking some of these questions, this is new to me. So I'm learning as we go here also. But early on, let's see. A question. First off, let's just talk about pricing, Jason, because that question came up. I don't know to what degree, but last I had heard for pricing, $199 for standard US and then $399 for the Pro version, which obviously you need for this. How many licenses do you get with that? Do you know?
We talk about the routing add-in or the software or Thermal
Well, I guess
Studio?
first off, so first off, for just the Pro version, that's the $399 base price, and then you've got the 2 licenses for that. But then what's the cost? Is there a cost for the the Route Creator beyond that, and what is that?
Yes, yeah, it is. I believe best thing to do on that is to check the website, because that'll give it for your local region. But I know that it is, I believe, $199 US for a 12-month subscription.
Okay. Okay, good. So a question here from Robert was asking, since the images also contain this information, is that something that the Route Creator can contain so that future images are taken from the same perspective?
Same perspective.
I guess same location or.
Well, probably the best way to handle that is in the comments. There's no way, really, more advanced way to really address the perspective. You could add something to the comments to say, make sure you get the whole item in the field of view or something like that to guide the thermographer. But I'm not sure what else you could do in that regard.
Okay. Can you import the list from an Excel file? That was from Jeff.
Oh, it would have to be structured in the right way. You can, here, let me do this here. Let me go back to the asset list for a moment. Oops, sorry. Here, let me go back here. You can export these to CSV. So you could, how should I say it? You could create a example file just to get an idea for the structure. Yeah, let me. Put this on desktop. So that will export it as a CSV file, which can be edited by Excel. Now, the way that these are structured in a format like that is like this. So this breaks down the main location, kind of the sub-location, the assets. But you have these IDs. I'm not quite sure if you created, I don't know. That might be tough. I have not tried it from like an external like file and pulled that in. I don't know how well that will work. What concerns me is these ID numbers. I'm not sure how that will match up if you try to do that. You could try it. Try it with a small file. I might have to try it myself and see how that works.
Yeah, maybe we get back to Jeff offline.
Yeah. We can experiment with that a little. Because this has been exported, so that ID number is exported. The main reason for the export is to be able to share the files. So you could export as a CSV and send that to somebody else, and they can import that, and everything will populate. It would look exactly like your file. But as far as importing from an external file, I don't know how well that would work.
Okay. Well, Robert was asking about, is the routing a perpetual license with updates, or does it follow the annual license?
It's a subscription.
Subscription, so annual subscription.
Yeah. Yep.
One more question from Robert. I think that might be it, unless, well, I'm not sure, there are a couple more coming in. The status list and other customizable lists, are there character limitations to consider for both the software and the interface on the camera?
Well, you have to think about the camera and how much screen space it has with those status lists and things like that. You are limited to just the LCD screen. So you probably wouldn't want to put too much text on there. Otherwise, it's going to get a little hard to navigate. As far as a strict character limit, I'm not aware of anything, but it's more of a user interface kind of issue. Something you might, keep the status list kind of brief, I would say. And then you can expand on it in the software and the comments as you build those, those inspection files if you want to add a little more information in the comments section. Yeah.
Okay. Was there a plan to include other methods of condition monitoring or measurement from the product line that you're aware of at this point? Other PDM technologies, anything like that, to make it more of a reliability centered type? I don't believe so. I haven't heard anything like that.
No, that would be product management. I'm not aware of anything like that. Yeah.
let's see, upgrading to Thermal Studio Pro. This came from Alan. I guess carrying forward the custom template from FLIR Studio or FLIR Reports.
Mm.
What's the deal there? If you have FLIR, if you have FLIR tools or FLIR, Tools Plus and all that, I guess you have to recreate the report template from scratch. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they're completely incompatible because the old software used a Word format, and this uses its own unique format. So it's not dependent on Word, which helps in a lot of ways. Just from an efficiency standpoint, is much quicker than trying to export all those images into a Word document. But the downside of that is that the formats are totally incompatible. So you would have to build a new template. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Great. I think that's it. I think we got it all.
Great.
Appreciate it. No, thank you very much, Jason.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hope it was helpful.
No, I definitely think so. It's good to sort of now have a webinar out because I know people are asking about this route creator. And so, as I mentioned earlier, we are going to post this to our YouTube page here coming up in the next few days, probably by early next week. Go to youtube.com/infrared training. I'll put that right up there on the top of the page, the playback of this webinar. So tell your colleagues, tell your friends, it'll be available. Also, if you want to follow us on social media, I will announce it there as well on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We've got not just this webinar, but many others that are recorded, all free and can be viewed at any time. But stay tuned to these channels here for special training announcements, news from the industry, valuable tips, a lot more. And then don't forget, if you're looking to get back into training, certification or recertification for the US and Canada, head to infraredtraining.com for classes and dates coming up there. And for our fellow thermographers based in Europe, the Middle East, or Africa, irtraining.eu is where you can go for a list of courses in your region. And once again, thanks for joining us today, folks. And we hope to see you online again soon at another future live web event. Take care and have a great weekend.